And welcome back. You're listening to Hysteria, the podcast for people with go bags instead of hope chests.
Accurate.
Do you have a go bag?
Fuck yeah.
What's in it?
Come on. Let's see. You have to have, well, it's not really a go bag. It's more like a note card that tells me where very important things are in case of natural disaster or other emergency.
Sure.
So it's like, we need the deed to the house. We need old family pictures. Only the things you can't replace.
Okay. That makes sense.
And the cats. The cats.
Yeah. I guess I have like a bag packed because I'm too lazy to unpack it when I get back from trips. It has like my toiletries in it and a couple outfits that I didn't wear, a few pairs of underwear. Throw in a first aid kit.
You're ready to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And some flares.
And some roadside flares, and you're ready to go. During pandemic, I went through a little bit of a prepper phase where I was like, not really a hardcore prepper, but I was like, I got to have a battery charger for my car. I got to have a burner cell phone in case this shit goes sideways.
You have a burner cell?
I have multiple burner cell phones that were purchased They were purchased in 2020. And so they're even less traceable now than they were. I've never used them.
So sad that you didn't tell me you had a burner so I could get a burner and we could just like burner communicate together.
Burners are walkie-talkies for people that are afraid of everything. Yeah. Okay. Well, the primary happened earlier this week. It was a little bit of a snooze. So we don't really need to go into it. Nikki Haley's still going.
In it?
Still in it, still doing it. I think the Pod Save America recap of the New Hampshire primary pretty much sufficiently covers what Alyssa and I also think about what happened. But there's other stuff going on this week besides the bread and or circuses of primaries. Are they bread or are they circuses? I think they're circuses.
Circuses.
For sure. This week would have been the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade. You know, if it weren't for...
May she rest in peace.
May she become a zombie.
May she only be hibernating. May she only be hibernating.
May she rise again like zombie Jesus. Every year, typically, Democratic lawmakers commemorate the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. This year, the Biden administration is commemorating the anniversary by announcing a push for more abortion access at the federal level. Before we react to it, let me just kind of go over some of the points.
Do it. We'll be calm and quiet.
So the Biden campaign had some pro-choice rallies in Wisconsin and Virginia, and they launched a new TV ad featuring a Texas OBGYN who was forced to travel out of state to terminate her wanted but non-viable pregnancy. The ad aired during The Bachelorette. I think they also aired it on HGTV and other places that have
TLC. All my faves.
Primarily female audiences. We know exactly who they're going after with this ad. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has started a program that can educate patients and doctors of their rights under the existing Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, or EMTALA, which sounds like a model of car.
EMTALA.
EMTALA.
Impala.
The EMTALA has been a topic of conversation in courts recently. Because there are several states, including Idaho and Texas, that have very draconian abortion bans that come into conflict with EMTALA. EMTALA requires that emergency rooms provide care to people who need it, basically. It doesn't matter what kind of care they need. If you need emergency abortion care to treat a life-saving pregnancy complication, and before anybody says, like, why would anyone need an abortion? If you have hypertension, like hypertension and your blood pressure is spiking and your fetus is not yet viable, you need an abortion so you don't die. Mm-hmm. Like that is one of the treatments for it. Hypertension and pregnancy, bad combination. In some cases, preeclampsia, any sort of placental abruption, heavy bleeding. There are many. If you ask what possible thing in pregnancy can cause, like
there's a lot.
There is a fucking lot. And you asking that question means you're an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about and you shouldn't be having opinions about abortion policy because you don't know what you're talking about. Okay, but I'm getting sidetracked. EMTALA requires hospitals to treat you if you go into the emergency room needing emergency care. So the administration is also issuing new guidance on what that means. And they've made a new website. So in case you do go to an ER and they're like, no, we're not going to give you a life-saving abortion, and then you die and your ghost logs onto the internet, it's easier for your ghost to file a complaint about the hospital with a new website. It's actually pretty easy to follow along with. The administration is also issuing new guidance around the Affordable Care Act's provision that requires insurers to provide many types of birth control at no cost to women with health insurance, both for people with private insurance and for federal employees. The administration has also reiterated their commitment to protecting reproductive health care access to veterans and service members, as well as reminding the public that they're still fighting to keep mifepristone legal in the courts. The Supreme Court, as we speak, is waiting to hear a case challenging the FDA approval and availability of mifepristone. Thanks a lot, Fifth Circuit.
Thanks so much.
So Alyssa, Biden has repeatedly vowed to codify Roe if elected, and then he said he'd do it after the midterms. But he didn't, which isn't entirely his fault with, a Republican House and Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
And now what he's done is launch a messaging campaign about what Republicans will do if they have the power again, and an education campaign reminding people of laws that already exist. Is this the most Biden administration could be doing here? Are we impressed with this?
Oh, Erin. I mean, here's the problem. Two things. One, vowing to codify Roe is problematic because you need to do it legislatively, which he kind of can't because broken house, right? So is what they're doing the most they can be doing? Yes, kind of. I mean, but it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating.
I don't know. I'm going to just say WWTD, Alyssa. What would Trump do? And I don't think that he's a great role model for anything.
He's not.
He isn't, but he is a really good role model at just throwing fucking spaghetti at the wall.
So you could be doing like executive order after, like the problem is Democrats sometimes are a little too cerebral, right? So it's like, yeah, you could be fucking throwing, executive orders against the wall. They'd make their way through the court system based on the highest court in the land. God knows what would happen at that point. But like, basically what's happening right now are a series of steps that are helpful and are trying to help women. But unless you are so hyper vigilant and following the thread of all these things and have the time to do so and aren't in a crisis where you need to sort this out quickly, this is really fucking like not practicable for people who are in a crisis, which is what this is meant to help. If you are like Erin, you and I have like sadly gallows humory joked that like, if you're in an emergency room, do you need to put on a t-shirt that says, "Are you in my network?" So that when your insurance tries to deny you, like everything is so fucked up and hard that like getting someone who is in a crisis, who needs an abortion, to understand EMTALA is hard. It's not hard. It's not fair. Like there is too much happening. And I think that like right now, some of the things that they should be doing, which we've seen governors talking about, Governor Whitmer, Governor Westmore in Maryland, talking about like Biden and President Biden and Vice President Harris out there talking about it helps. Because if nothing else, they should be rallying people in states where constitutionally protected abortion does not yet exist. I mean, and Erin, you and I have also talked about, I don't know, maybe they should help fund or put muscle behind ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment, which is one avenue potentially to protecting abortion. So like to your point, Trump would be doing all those things if the shoe were on the other foot, and he wouldn't care if it was hard or maybe unpopular.
It's like watching a child trying to play a PS5, just hitting a bunch of buttons, see what makes the guy jump. Like we need to.
Exactly.
And we're just sitting there. If you can't tell, I recently got a PS5 and don't know how to play it. But like, we're just sitting there holding the controls and being like, this is too complicated. We can't push any of these buttons. And it's like, I kind of wish that we were more likely to, or more willing to button smash as Democrats. And it's not really happening. And part of it is, Joe Biden has been very public about how he's personally uncomfortable with abortion because he's a practicing Catholic. I'm sorry. I think that Joe Biden has a good heart and is a good man. And I think that he's accomplished a lot more during his presidency than a lot of people give him credit for.
Totally.
But when it comes to men over the age of 50 talking about their being uncomfortable with abortion, I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care if you're uncomfortable with it.
Can I quote you?
I truly don't fucking care.
Let me be the first to say to anyone who lacks the plumbing necessary to give birth, I don't fucking care if you're uncomfortable with it.
I don't. I know. I think that it is.
I just like to quote you.
Thank you. I think that it is bizarre and creepy that this is not a decision that is left to a woman, a pregnant person, and the medical provider that is assessing the care that she needs. Now, I think that there's also, pushback that's like, oh, so do you think abortion should be legal up to the point of birth? I don't think that there is a reputable, licensed doctor in their right mind who would perform an elective abortion on a person who is 40 weeks pregnant. That is not something, and
it's fake.
It should be something that is, doctors will not commit infanticide while acting in accordance with the Hippocratic Oath guidelines of their practice and their specialty. It is so weird to me that the government is involved with this at all.
And acting like it's a real issue.
It is the fact that they're denying people this right is a real issue, but why are we spending so much energy talking about this thing that should be regulated within the medical community?
Correct. I was talking about abortion at the 40th week.
Oh yeah, that's not a thing that happens, and it is, and the cases in which there have been super late term abortions that were performed on women in unsanitary conditions, that was extra legal. That's already not legal. That was, Dr. Kermit Gosnell his clinic was an absolute horror show. That is not a hospital. That is people going outside of the law to obtain care. And
right.
It is just an outside of the medical fields, codes of ethics to obtain care. It should be between doctors and the people that need the care. And it is so creepy that so many people feel like it should be a government issue. It makes me feel crazy. Anyway, at least we've got Kamala Harris, I think, since it must be an issue of public policy. I think Kamala Harris is actually really good on this issue.
Yeah, she's out there. She's doing it.
She's out there. She was in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, as listeners know, there was a Supreme Court election earlier in 2023, in April 2023, that resulted in a decisive victory for a pro-choice candidate in a state that is usually 1 or 2 points purple. So Kamala Harris being in Wisconsin is wise. She's a good messenger. I think I'm glad she's out there. And I also want to say, as we go into the campaign, this is one of my pet peeves. In the way that we talk about politics and political issues. People say voters are people going to make decisions based on abortion, or are they more worried about the economy? I don't know, man. As somebody who is very aware of how much children cost, how much birth costs, how much healthcare costs, I'm just going to go ahead and say they are
linked.
They're linked. They are linked. And Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan has said recently that having a child or not having a child is one of the biggest economic decisions that most women will ever make in her life. So why are we pretending that it is separate from why are we pretending that voters are going to value the stock market performance over the micro implications of whether or not they are forced to give birth or carry a complicated pregnancy longer than they should have to? Why is that? Why are they fucking separate? The reason people are having
and Democrats should talk about them together.
Exactly.
Like Governor Whitmer did.
And actually, economics is one of the big reasons that people choose to have abortion. The unaffordability of having children is one of the big reasons that people don't.
Erin, Marjorie Taylor Greene's out there being we got to rebuild the workforce. We got to do this. It's girl, let me tell you something. People aren't having babies because they can't afford them. That's the bottom line.
And
that's the bottom line.
There is this McMansion hillbilly class of people that wants the birth rate to go up so that when they're 80 years old and yelling at the people working at Jamba Juice, there are enough workers for them to yell at. It is so fucked. And yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene can kick rocks. Let's talk, speaking about kicking rocks, let's talk a little bit about the March for Life, which is still happening. something that's super interesting about the March for Life. It has been going on since, I don't know, since the early
beginning
80s.
Of time.
It's been going on for a long time, and it's a gathering of creeps and losers who think that it is their business whether or not women that they don't know and have never met carry pregnancies to term.
A lot of people who don't have the plumbing getting involved here.
A lot of people without the plumbing. A lot of people without, you don't have the range. March for Life this year really brings into relief that it is really a march for people who cannot, for the life of them, just take the W and shut the fuck up. The worst thing, I'm sorry, free advice for the pro-life community here. As we have seen in the coming up on 2 years since the Alito draft was leaked of the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe, the less pro-life people shut the fuck up, the worse it is for them, right?
Yes.
The worse it is for them. They are not doing well they're not doing well in the voting booth, and having a giant gathering of people who are like, we will never stop.
We're not done. This is just the beginning.
It's like, yeah, good. Thank you for reminding people of that, because that is why people are voting in places like Kansas, Montana, and Ohio, and might be voting in places like Florida, Nevada, Arizona, and recently Arkansas got a ballot measure approved. Like the reason that people in these states that you would not expect to be mobilized by abortion are being mobilized is because you have people that are like, we will not stop. Like, oh my God, you guys are fucking terrifying.
Exactly. They literally are the only people not reading the exit polls of any of the primaries or any polling. It's like, guys, people are actually super repelled. Like 67% of America is like, yikes.
Yeah.
Too much. And they're like, more. They're like Cookie Monster, but for women's rights.
Yeah. And one observation I've made about the abortion debate in this country is that prior to Roe v. Wade being overturned, there was one mission for the pro-life crowd, and that was to overturn Roe v. Wade. They had one mission, and then they got it, and then it just sort of splintered off into all of these disparate pieces.
They caught the car,
and now they can't agree what to do next. Like, do they want to outlaw birth control? Some of them want to outlaw birth control.
I know.
Some of them want to outlaw IVF. Some of them want to come after, like, they're coming after things that it's like, nah, man, nobody wants, like, nobody, like, single digits.
You went too far.
Right. But I think that the pro-choice side has been empowered by the most disempowering event in its history. Since Dobbs, we're united around like, holy shit, we need Roe v. Wade back. We need abortion protections back. We don't totally agree on all of the details on it, but our first and most important goal is to reestablish protection for abortion. And so now we all have a goal that we're working for together. And they're over there making fools of themselves in Arctic temperatures when they've already gotten most of what they wanted. Just shut the fuck up.
They got what they wanted, and they're on the fast track, something you and I have talked about just amongst ourselves a lot. They're on the fast track to promoting something like what's happening in El Salvador, where there's a complete abortion ban, where women who miscarry, women who have stillbirths go to fucking prison. And
women who have given birth in hospitals and had the baby die in the hospital are sent to prison for not taking better care of themselves when they were pregnant.
Yep. And that's not hyperbole.
Yeah, no, that's not hyperbole at all. Okay, so we have a lot more news to talk about that we just do not have time to talk about. But some of this is developing. We're going to talk a little bit about the child tax credit.
We're into that.
Child tax credit, we're going to get more into next week. That's something that is kind of in the works, and it might actually be a bipartisan effort to make life easier for families in this country, which is
bipartisan and bicameral.
Bipartisan. Oh my God.
What?
This is
it's not without some pitfalls, but we'll talk about it next week.
This is the most bi that our legislative branch has ever been.
But